Welcome to Alignment First, where we're here to bring leaders back to their peace, presence, and power. And I'm jamming with my boy, Logan Gelbrich, founder of Deuce Gym, the Hold the Standard Summit, and author of Going Right, out there slanging iron, changing lives, and building leaders. Bro, you are one of the most low-key individuals in my circle, and without a doubt, one of the busiest. So I appreciate you carving out some time for this conversation, man.
I'm so excited, man. I feel just before we hopped on it, I was saying, I'll just reiterate, just like such good feelings towards you, and like this nostalgia comes up. I just really cherish like our previous conversations, and it's a pleasure to stay in touch from afar. But yeah, anytime we talk, it's just incredible. So
Yeah,
here we
it's
are.
always
Here we
it's
are.
always it's always a jam, and
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, part of our origin story for those of you that weren't around prior to Alignment First. I had a previous iteration of the podcast, and with a partner of mine, Jeff, great dude, and going into the CrossFit Games 10 years ago, dog.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Damn.
Logan has been very, very keen on tying the parallels of leadership to strength and conditioning. And in that vein, him and I walk in very parallel tracks. And I invited Logan onto that podcast at the games, and he was kind enough in that invitation to reciprocate your initial Hold the Standard Summit, or maybe it
Yeah.
was the second or third, but it was definitely
Oh
in
yeah,
this
it was
industry
it was
infancy.
early. Yeah, it was early on. There definitely been a few of them. But yeah, that was a trip. It's always interesting. The different venues. I don't do them in gyms anymore, but it's
Yeah.
like I think we're like sitting on tires and something crazy. Yeah.
It's the quintessential origin story, man, and it was cool to be there in the very beginning. We ended up hosting one at Next Level, and
Yeah.
uh, let me ask you this, because I don't think I've ever asked you explicitly. When did you start connecting those dots between leadership and organizational development
Mm.
and strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. Most everything that I learned of real substantial value came through the context of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball was kind of probably, I don't want to speak for you, my version of the Marine Corps for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to take a view of almost like systems thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to run and shoot like you probably do. I could probably, move the baseball to the opposite field maybe a little bit better than you. But I think from my vantage point, I think that I see those as environments to witness and extract kind of principled learning,
Mm-hmm.
which is sort of why you and I can hop on a podcast and somehow rap about the same thing. Meanwhile, how we learned those things are very different environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so I'm not really precious about baseball or strength and conditioning. I'm really interested in development, specifically adult development, and how that works, how to teach it, how to do it better, how to build organizations of a complexity that is really useful and
Mm-hmm.
like creates a lot of value. And it just so happens that that kind of behavior
Mm-hmm.
can and should happen in the Marine Corps. It can and should happen in a professional baseball locker room, and it can and should happen in a small business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, not to like live in the clouds and completely avoid your question, I used to be a baseball player. I was sort of living and breathing the very critical feedback loops of like how to be the best in the world at something,
Mm-hmm.
which I never was, but I tried really hard.
Right.
Um, And then entrepreneurship came along, and I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm almost pretty agnostic, I would say, as to in what domain I wanted to be an entrepreneur. The gym became my first business, gyms, and this business became my first business. But I can see that those details aren't really critical to the principles behind them.
Hmm.
Um, but in the background behind everything I just said, I was engaging in a conversation academically about adult development. So I don't know if I've ever told you this story. Folks that are listening that have heard me, please forgive me. But while I was at the University of San Diego, which is where I played my collegiate career, I had enough credits in my schedule to take on a minor in leadership studies. They built a leadership school there, which was pretty progressive at the time. And I was about to finish this program, and my senior year, the NCAA shrunk the schedule. They compacted it to give like cold weather schools a more fair advantage. And basically, I was going to miss the capstone course for this leadership minor like every time because of games. And so, long story made short, I went to the school and they sort of denied me any other option around it. I would have had to come back for a fifth year and I was going to go play professional baseball. There's no way I'm coming back to school for one class. So I was just like, damn, this is a waste. I
Hmm.
really wanted to do this. They kept denying me. And ultimately, I found the professor of the course and went to her desk. And that was Dr. Kara Miller, who I believe you met.
She is a G.
Yeah, that's
Love
right.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she really backed me there, right?
Hmm.
So she went to the school. I didn't really know at the time. She told me many years later, she went to the school and said, "Hey, this guy's in leadership on our like premier sports program here. If we didn't build this school for someone like this, then who did we build it for? Like, let me do an independent study with him." And so I
Sick.
basically took this course with her one on one, and she is a dear friend. I honored enough to, dare I say, colleague sometimes. Like
Hmm.
we've worn many different hats. But she, is a PhD developmental psychologist who went on to Harvard and worked with sort of the premier people in this industry field, whatever you want to call it. So I kind of got this deep insight from a civilian perspective
Hmm.
on the highest level learnings of group dynamics and adult development. And I think part of my nature is I think I can connect pretty complex ideas for people.
Hmm.
And so I was really articulating some of those concepts and stealing and utilizing some of those concepts in my work, my
Yeah.
businesses. And then basically I was sort of forced by people first in the fitness industry to teach it. And so that was the gave birth to the Hold the Standard Summit. But all of that is just selfish desire to do the thing better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you talk about synthesizing complex ideas, I call it connecting the cosmic dots,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and in the principled work that you do, I'm curious your perspective. When you do principled work, is it true in your reality that once you identify a principle as universal, you then see it and can apply it literally everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I light up at ideas that seemingly are connected in that way.
Hmm.
I think that the highest developmental way to respond to what you just said is um, can you find these air quotes principles and hold them lightly enough that they don't become your dogma, and
Hmm.
so the language we kind of use is like um, this is what we know to be true so far, or we're trying to break our frame at all times. That being said, it's really interesting. One of the most freeing perspectives that I think we can take as leaders is one that I used as a lecture to open the Hold the Standard Summit, which is that frankly, not all of our problems are technical problems, and when, shoot, I got a podcast, you got a podcast, not to talk trash on podcasts, but it's like there's a lot of people out there talking about techniques. You know what I mean? My whole Instagram feed is like these 7 hooks to grow your thing. And it's like for sure. And those techniques are critical. To use a weightlifting example, it's like what technique is needed posture and position wise? You're a good coach. Where does the pelvis need to be for a 300-pound deadlifter to deadlift 600 pounds?
Hmm.
There's no technique for that. That just needs to be a new person. That's right. That person. The technique is get way stronger.
Hmm.
Be a different dude is the technique for that, right? Which isn't a technique, it's an adaptation, right? And so
Right.
opening this perspective of like, well, if not all of our challenges, not all of our areas to address are technical ones, then like, well, what are the other ones? And you know, a guy called Ronald Heifetz would say those are adaptive challenges. And this is where I get stoked. I
Yeah.
live for this. You know what I mean? Like adaptive leadership. Because I don't, I frankly have to look at us living in the information age where everybody is sharing all the techniques, yet we still have all the poor results and the problems. It's like, well, if that was the issue, then we'd be all set.
Hmm.
So we got to look in this other side of, I don't know, this kind of bifurcated world of technical challenges and adaptive ones. And it seems to me, and other people who are much smarter than me, um, that leaders are really suffering from not a lack of information, but a lack of adaptation, a lack of
Hmm.
capacity, you know. And I there's lots of different ways to sort of paint this picture, but one that I'm using a lot recently is in Leadership Lab, I asked the group, I said, I go, think of the most annoying, uh, immature person from your hometown. And it's not meant to like be demeaning to somebody, but everybody has that person in mind. And doing the mental experiment of imagining someone else makes it really clear, right? So I'm like,
Hmm.
everybody do that. Think about the most immature, like problematic, you know, idiot from back home, wherever that is, right? And it's like, download all of the expertise and knowledge that you have into that person and have them run your company. That's the difference. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
It's that person needs to evolve to be a further along, more equipped, more, perspective holding person than they are.
Right.
Right. And it's like, and
Hmm.
if you can see that in your mind, then it's like, okay, now we're in the business of adaptation. This is as much of a focus and a priority as anything is the
Yep.
development of the people in the organization, in the system. And then when you have language for that, then you're sort of off to the races,
Right.
but that's that's where I like to live.
Yeah.
And just to finish my little rant here, it's like from a principled perspective,
Hmm.
that's a pretty distilled down principle
Hmm.
that not all of our problems are technical, some of them are adaptive, and now we have to have a way for this system to reconcile those problems. And
Mm.
let's look there, you know.
Are they playing off of each other? The development of your adaptive challenges help you resolve technical challenges and vice versa? Or are
Probably
they running parallel and independent of each other?
Probably. I mean, I'll clarify. Some challenges, whether they're technical or adaptive, depends on the user, right?
Hmm.
So we'll go back to fitness. I think I might have given this one at your summit, but it's like, is the obesity issue in America a technical challenge or an adaptive challenge? And the answer is it sort of depends,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if your neighbor needs to lose 80 pounds and they're diabetic and have a bunch of issues coming down the pipeline with their health, well, if you knock on their front door and say, hey, I actually know a lot about training and nutrition, eat these 12 things and do these 4 workouts, and then in 6 weeks, come talk to me again. If in 6 weeks you're looking at a leaner, stronger, healthier person, then that's a pretty technical challenge for that person. They just didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what they didn't know. You gave them the keys to the city,
Right.
right? But then it's like, how many obese folks whose lives are depending on their ability to improve their health, how many of those people are already experts on what they need to eat? They already know what they need to do in the gym, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not happening, right? And it's like, for
Right.
those folks, that is more of an adaptive issue, right? And so challenges can present differently for different people. I think that, you know, the developmental community would probably say that you're not supposed to weigh one type of challenge over another. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you break your neck in a hang gliding accident, it's really serious. It doesn't matter that it's a technical challenge and that a surgeon can solve it and we have the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
It's really serious. However, I think that the pursuit of adaptive growth and adaptive solving adaptive challenges is so underserved that I'm kind of like, that's really where we need to focus. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, at least we need less help, in my opinion, in the technical space. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
And so it's more rare to adopt that.
Mm.
Frankly, I think that so few groups, organizations, teams, people that you would consult or see, like, so few of those groups kind of out of the womb automatically have language for this,
Mm-hmm.
that you can do this thing where we don't really know how to say what is occurring. We don't have the language for what's happening in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really think that this is the most timely conversation in leadership, this adaptive thing.
Yeah. I would completely agree because to piggyback on everything that you just said, with the access to information that is present in 2026, it is highly unlikely that the resolution or lack thereof is a technical one. Because if it was, it would just be paint by numbers results. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't seem to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
I love the language around a technical issue versus an adaptive one, in that I've been telling the story. We were catching up and talking about the evolution of Next Level and who we serve and how we do it now. And I remember 2019, we have Aaron Hind in Overlapping Circles,
Mm-hmm.
founder of Life Aid Bevco, Fit Aid. Shout out Aaron. And I reached out to him, was getting ready to lead this, my first mastermind weekend. And I came to the market at 15 grand for the
Mm-hmm.
weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a reply email from an OG member of the gym, long gone, built his legal practice, and was well on his way down the path of personal growth and development. Aaron was going to keynote this event. He was my headliner.
Mm-hmm.
And the event was the New Year Network. So reply, but instead of New Year Network, it said, "You're not Tony Robbins."
Pretty good.
And he then proceeds to write a forearm length email telling me all the reasons, the apples and oranges comparison. Like, this is what you would get for 15 grand with Tony.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was written with the energy of love and
Mm-hmm.
respect. And obviously you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to help you out, dude.
Yeah. Give you
Right.
a little insight here. Yeah.
And as we've bridged the last however many years since then, what I don't get from the field anymore is that you're not Tony Robbins energy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no marketing technique, there's no flywheel I could present, there's no graphic, there's no
Yeah.
social post sequence that any marketing pro would prescribe that would overcome who I had to become as a coach and a speaker, etc., in terms of skill acquisition, adaptation,
Yeah.
to elicit that response to change that response from the field.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth acknowledging the period in your life where the first email happened, because I know people are listening that are late. They're behind on presenting themselves in the world in the way that they want. So my sort of thought is like, are you going to be early or are you going to be late? Are you going to say it's 15 grand too soon? Or is it going to be $500 for too many years until you muster up, until you become that guy or that gal? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's almost always better to be too soon, you know, to make that move
Mm-hmm.
too soon, whatever that is, and grow into that thing, because it moved you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You probably put that up on the website and you sent out that email, and then when you get in front of the room, you're like, well, I better bring five figures worth of effort right here,
Yep.
you know. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
commendable. So
I appreciate it, man. Thank
yeah,
you.
of course, you know.
What is it about? I think that's a perfect segue. If that's in your decision matrix, if you're ever so blessed to have that level of awareness and to ask the question, am I too early
Mm-hmm.
or have I waited too late? What would need to occur for somebody to be comfortable with all of the unknowns of being too early?
Here, I don't know if this will fully nail it for everybody, but I think it'll be helpful. Here's how I like to answer that. I think most people who are in the game, whatever the game is, are tired and they're maybe overworked, underpaid. I would say in general, unless you're
Mm-hmm.
just starting out and you're like time wealthy and you're just chilling, maybe this won't apply to you. But most people who are a coach of something, selling some sort of service or whatever, most of those people are like, damn, like I'm working hard and I don't like how my bank account looks. You know, I think that two responses. One is, will you charge for your time in 5 years what you're charging for it today? And usually a gap like that, or let's say 8 years, you know, like make it maybe a little further out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could ask myself this, I could ask you this right now, and it's like 8 years from now, will an hour or a weekend of your time cost what it costs today? And most people who are uncomfortable changing the price of their time today, it gives enough of a gap for them to feel comfortable to be like, well, definitely not in 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then my follow-up question, once everybody agrees that like 5 or 8 years from now, the price will be different, I say, when will you change the price, the value of your time? Will it be after you're resentful and burnt out and angry enough to do it? Or will it be too early?
Mm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's going to feel too soon.
Mm-hmm.
unless you're completely angry and resentful and burnt and over it, and maybe you'll quit, but right, because it's so bad, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And most people are like, oh, that checks out, right? So it's like too early, like everybody too early, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second and like maybe more simple way to do it that resonates with some people and maybe not others, definitely has resonated with me at certain times, is very simple. When you make a sale, you can't be pissed that you made a sale. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like if I sold someone on some consulting and I'm like, God damn it, dude, I gotta go to Irvine to present to that team for only X dot. Like you already, that's the most wonderful signal. And I think that people justify that because of how they do pricing. I mean, not to like go down the rabbit hole of pricing, but there's like a lot of classic ways to do pricing. The first is cost plus pricing. You figure out what it costs to do business, and then you charge a little more than it costs.
Mm-hmm.
If you're selling a pen and it costs you $1, you got to sell it for at least $1.25 for it to be interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't sell it for less than it costs you. Well, that's generally okay, but the other one that gets us into trouble is this market-based pricing. So you sort of look at what something like this costs in the market, and then you charge that. This is
Mm-hmm.
where the CrossFit people just nuked themselves, which was like, apparently it's $150 for a membership. It's like that's just because all these websites copied each other on the price.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the banger way to do pricing is value-based pricing, which
Mm-hmm.
is, can you create enough perceived value that the price that you charge doesn't really have anything to do with the cost of goods or the cost of like doing business, and it doesn't even have anything to do with what the marketplace is doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what like Ferrari does, It's like
Mm-hmm.
add up the parts. It's like not $500,000 for this car, you know,
Right.
but it's a Ferrari. There's this perceived value thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are selling services or products and they're making sales and they're like, fuck, I just hate this because they're undercharging
Mm-hmm.
because of the classic ways to create pricing. Like, well, this is what something like this costs. It's like, you
Says
know,
who?
says who, and maybe if
Mm-hmm.
that's true, then you shouldn't be in that business because it obviously isn't working. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So
So dope. Let me pivot here because I'm curious. You've always had, at least to my knowledge, this academic spin on Deuce Gym.
mhm. Yeah.
When and how did you come to this way of teaching fitness that became a school?
Yeah. So um the short answer is the whole time, but the interesting answer is like, well, why the whole time? And I think why is a point of view that I have
Yeah,
that
because there's, I'm interrupting you on
no, you're
purpose.
good.
There's the knowing it intrinsically, like this is how I communicate this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe for lack of tools
Mm-hmm.
or environmental adaptation, like this is just the way Logan presents it.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, it became your brand.
Yeah.
We teach this thing,
Yeah.
barbell 101. And I know you had a bunch of courses that had a lot of
Yeah.
academic nomenclature associated with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what really, what Deuce really became known for, is like the school of fitness, and obviously a whole bunch of other things that have
Yeah.
evolved since then.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I might have been a good student and I didn't hate school, it's not really because that's just my style. It is an
Hmm.
intentional thing. And I think it's important to explain why. I think we have a strong point of view as a company that fitness is free. We have no perception that there is some inherent value in pretending that we have some proprietary workout that no one else does. We actually index really high on the other side. One of the things we say internally is like no new methods. We don't have like, this isn't Boonda, this isn't berries, this isn't some other made up new shit. This is old and free. And I think if you take the perspective, at least in this industry, that fitness is free, then it sort of begs the next question, which is like, well, then why does this cost money? Why would this cost money? And there's lots of things you could come up with. One of the things you could come up with is this gym is so nice that it costs hundreds of dollars a month to come here. Well, my gym is a 100-year-old garage. It is not nice. Okay, so it can't be that. And I don't have any money. So it can't be nice shit. Okay. So it's like, well, then why do we charge money? It's like, we charge money because I think that you can create a lot of value, not selling reps and sets, but selling coaching. Like selling education, selling a teacher-student relationship. Furthermore, you can do that and enroll people in a high value creating thing forever because everyone can learn forever, right? Like that's kind of built into our mind. So if this is a skill-based worldview of movement and that journey can go on forever and you can have a professor forever, then that's what we do. And so all the language is like propaganda to create that image, right? To reinforce this worldview that we are creating value because we're very clear on what we're selling and what we're not selling, right? We're not selling the borrowing of our equipment each month because literally every other gym in this neighborhood has nicer equipment. Right. Okay. So if we're really clear on what our value is, then we can quadruple down on the messaging of that, and we can quadruple down on like, are we delivering on that? And our view is that you'd have to get on an airplane and go very far to find a better coaching experience in a strength and conditioning environment. And so that's how you get to this thing where I am like maniacal about if one of our coaches lets the word member slip out of their mouth, it's like, hey, student. They're students. Our courses have curriculums, and the courses are named in ways that resemble like what you see on a university, and that's just because we're very clear as to what we are doing in terms of creating value. And the moment that you commoditize fitness, you can't compete. That's what's happening really a lot in our industry, which is with drop-in culture and class pass and the commoditization of class-based fitness. The marketplace, like most people cruising around Venice and Santa Monica and the surrounding communities, sort of perceive an hour, a class at SoulCycle and a yoga class, and they even say it that way. I'm gonna do an F45. I'm gonna do it as interchangeable, right? So they're just collecting hours of sweat and dopamine, right? It's like I don't even want to come up on someone's radar that we're doing that. Like this is a program where you're going to learn, and that's a thing that has nothing to do with like you going to SoulCycle has nothing to do with what's happening here. So that's why the academic thing is there.
Yeah. For as busy as you are and as many projects you have out there going simultaneously, how important is it for you to spend I'm making an assumption here, but so I'll ask it differently. How important is your alone time, your cerebral space, to keep driving this mission forward?
I mean, and I know this isn't true for everybody, and anybody who knows me is like already rolling their eyes because they know what I'm going to say to this question, but it's like every introvert can't wait to tell you that they're an introvert. That's just me. I think that I've learned through hardship and pain that I have to defend alone time in order to do what I do well.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, it's catastrophic to my ability to do my job. And
Mm-hmm.
so um, I have enough awareness now to know that I will max out a Myers-Briggs test on introversion.
Mm-hmm.
And what gets me into trouble is it seems like I'm good at the extroverted thing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really consequential to me. Like I really pay the man after exposing myself to populations of people in front of the room, hosting, etc. So yeah, I've just learned that I need that. But I think the like takeaway from answering that question is sort of like the Greeks and Romans have said it for thousands of years. It's like the key to life is know thyself, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I always say your intuition, your ability to make strong quality decisions is directly correlated to how well you know yourself, your own self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
none of us have great self-awareness. All of us think we have better self-awareness than we do. But you're gonna really struggle to be an adult who doesn't know themselves. At
Mm-hmm.
least know themselves enough to change your state to a place where you can operate at a high level. And
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that I need to be alone in order to do that. you know it's
Do you have a moment? Was it like a pattern that you eventually inevitably recognized? Like, did it all come crashing down? You had to like salvage it?
yeah, so in
What?
hindsight it gets really clear, but in chronological order there's not a lot of awareness there, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I rewind the tape, I didn't know how to explain why after 6 a.m. weight training in college, I would go back to my dorm or my house or apartment and go in my room and close the door, and I wouldn't even sleep. I would just like lay on my bed and sit there. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but like this is the place that I need to be. And I'm like buzzing from like the stimulus, right? There
Mm-hmm.
was at all the parties, like we were very social as a team. At a certain point, I would just go upstairs and go in my room, and hours before the party is done, and it's like, oh, this is my subconscious trying to find solitude in an environment that offered none of that in team sports.
Mm-hmm.
But later, like 7 years into running my business, it's like I was, unbeknownst to me, really suffering from not having time and space in that way because I didn't know that that was needed. And I was basically making overriding choices: um, rest, recover, seek solitude, or like score points for the business. I was like, you're never going to choose the other one if you don't think that that wouldn't affect your ability to score points for the business. And so that worked until it didn't. And I ran into like a bout of depression that was so debilitating and rock bottom in terms of my well-being that I had to learn from it. And then
Mm-hmm.
then in reverse, you piece together like, oh, like I knew I was quote unquote an introvert, and like all these behaviors are sort of telling me that I need this thing that I've been avoiding. So I really suffered from that in a way that was like
Yeah.
really scary.
Mm. It's interesting in the work that we do now, how many people, much to your point about knowing thyself, don't, but in a really counterintuitive way. And there's an assessment that we leverage for our clients called the Berkman.
Hmm.
And there's how Logan presents, right?
Hmm.
How I experience you. That would
Yeah.
be when everything's going right and your needs are met. That's what we would call your usual behavior,
Hmm.
right? And then counter to that, when your needs go unmet for too long, duration and intensity are the key indicators there. Uh, that's your stress behavior, right?
Hmm.
Whatever that could look like.
Yeah.
What's what was profoundly and counterintuitively interesting to me when I got this assessment, and this is something that I never got from Myers-Briggs or insert personality test here. The expectation, at least my perception of Michael was to be social and get it done and push, 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 push. And everything that I need to show up that way is very introvert in nature.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that about yourself, that's why the question is so, that I threw at you is it was so genuinely interesting to me, because everything that you're celebrated for and how you show up in the world is counter to the things that you need. And if you don't know that, you put yourself in a lot of potential harm's way.
Yeah.
Unintentionally and inadvertently. It's like, I'm supposed to be here. This is what's expected of me. This is in the job description. This is my jam.
Yeah.
Why do I not want to be here right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that introverted itch has not been scratched for too long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I unpacked that about me that I really started changing the way that I move in the world to insulate that solitude.
Totally. What's interesting is, and this is maybe a bit of like a shout out to like an adjacent concept like the book going right, or an
Mm-hmm.
adjacent concept to just high performance cultures and high performance people, sort of like the environments that introduce us to ourselves tend to be those that demand us to go to the edges of our like ability, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
classic visuals, like you draw a circle and the circle represents like your capacity. It's like it's towards the edge that you begin to experience discomfort, failure. Stuff gets weird, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not engaged in a thing, regardless of what it is, it could be thrust upon you, it could be chosen on yourself, it could be your work, it could be something you do outside of work, that you get to dance at that line that
Mm-hmm.
would introduce you to yourself. It's kind of scary that you could live a long time and never know yourself. You know what I mean? Like you could live
Yeah.
a whole damn life and not really meet anything about you, you
Right.
know? And so it sounds like for you, there was a point in like your entrepreneurial journey where you're like, yo, like I'm experiencing this feedback of like, why don't I want to do my jam?
Right.
Right. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't show up if you're living square in the middle of the comfort of that circle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so thank God, like, I've had a few opportunities to really like meet the edge of my ability, and
Mm-hmm.
and generally will advocate for people to seek environments they'll do the same for themselves, you know.
Mm-hmm. In the pursuit of intentional adversity that you just described, like I'm going to put myself at the edge
Yeah.
on purpose. There's got to be a dark side to that coin.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things to say there. One is I think the more head-on answer is anything that is seemingly positive or what we call like a strength or a useful tool casts a shadow. So it's like, what is the shadow side of this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we could write down some attributes on a piece of paper that are like go getter, hard charger, blue collar, work ethic, like adversity seeker. These are all like cool hot topic things. You know, you don't have to be a genius to flip over the page and like jot down the ways that breaks down. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you can see what that guy or gal's life looks like when it goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an awareness thing. Um, and you know, yeah, the shadow side is again one of bringing objectivity to something that is pretty subjective. I had a second thought that I don't know if I have anymore, but I think that yeah, it oh, here it is. Those adversity seeking concepts that are positive intended and I genuinely believe in. I'm that person.
Hmm.
Um, Also deserve a disclaimer, which is we can corrupt and bastardize any positive thing,
Hmm.
right? Like you could take the espoused value of love for others into codependency,
Hmm.
right? The mean tweet that I sent about this a couple years ago was, um, is it still mental toughness if doing another hard workout is easier than addressing the other areas of your development?
Ooh.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
It's like how many people are like getting into another ice bath instead of having a hard conversation?
Dude, that is
Not that fucking hard to get in that ice bath for the 800th time.
right.
That's
Hmm.
eyewash performative bullshit, dude. Like,
Hmm.
you know, it'd be harder. It would be like, tell somebody you're sorry.
Yeah. That is 100% the impetus of the work that we do. In that I got really curious about 10 years ago with a cohort of clients. It's like maybe your fitness or lack thereof, because it's like this, patterns start to show up and conversations start to replay.
Mm.
It's like, maybe your fitness or lack thereof is a symptom of the shit that you're avoiding in the other 23 hours of your day.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter how fast you go or how hard you push in here. If you don't fix that, who
Hmm.
cares?
Yeah.
And I feel so fortunate, one, to have cats like you in my circle to validate these assumptions and that spider sense. And also, it was that clan of clients, my leaders now, that were willing to go out there and scratch that itch and report
Hmm.
back what the field was giving them.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, this
Yeah.
is way bigger than a barbell.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. When you hear that, what shows up for you?
Well, I think that like immediately what came to mind was, and I don't know if this is true in that group,
Mm,
but I get I get nervous when groups of espoused leaders get in the same room together because group dynamics are really tricky,
mhm,
so it's like it's really a ripe environment for like projection of espoused values and
mhm.
say the right thing, look the right way, raise your hand, say a nice smart little answer,
Uh-huh.
flex, what. So group dynamics are a trip, man. Like
Mhm,
we will behave in very illogical ways simply because we are in the presence of others. So, it's like as soon as you were talking about the group, part of me, and maybe it's like a lower part of me, was like, oh, I wonder like if I could have been a fly on the wall, if I
mhm.
could like sniff out everybody's bullshit. It's like because like most things, if you were in there with this group having like a vulnerable conversation, it's like most people will share like the discount version of the vulnerable
Yeah.
thing. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And
Right.
which is wild because the group wants another outcome, but sometimes
Mhm.
we create these like traps where we
Yeah.
won't get what we want. I share this example. I have to like protect the details enough to where I'm not like sharing people's business or whatever, but um, there's a great framework that I utilize from that guy Ronald Heifetz to kind of open the door to excuse my French, like the fuckery of group dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can go into any team, any company, any family, and like roll this out, and it'll get people to laugh at the embarrassment of what's present. So it's the statement goes like this. It's like any group, team, or organization is having 4 conversations. The first conversation is the explicit conversation. So a great like proxy for this is small business has a staff meeting. The explicit conversation is just the words that are said in the meeting out loud. The second conversation is the conversation that can only happen before the conversation. So that's like the Slack that Steven sends Eric and Margaret, but won't say in the meeting. And it's the conversation at the water cooler between Janet and Susan that also won't make it into the meeting, but they're exchanging information that's pertinent to the group. The third conversation is the conversation that can only happen afterwards. So like the shortest, easiest way that I say this is most meetings end with any questions, comments? No. And then you leave the meeting, you're like, fucking, how about Michael in there? Right? Okay. So we can say that in this context, but not in that context. And then the real scary one is the fourth conversation, which is the conversation you only have in your head. And it's like higher echelon, higher order, higher performance groups will be able to make more of the conversation explicit. Okay, it's kind of like the anti-elephant in the room thing.
Right.
I got paid more money than I've ever been paid to do anything once to go on an airplane and consult with a large organization. That's all I'll say. I'm being like cryptic on purpose. Large organization. And the assignment was 2 days, interview the whole C-suite, interview people at mid-level management, get an understanding of this leadership marketing bottleneck that they were experiencing, and present the findings as what to do next. And I did that. We did that. My business partner and I did that. And I think we did a great job presenting these findings. And in retrospect, it was a bit weird that everyone was invited to the C-suite meeting except the COO. So there was like this person missing, and it was like kind of this unspoken thing. It was like weird, but like thrown under the rug. So just before we go to present our findings, the CEO calls us, sets up a meeting before the meeting to say, hey, I just want to run something by you before you present your findings. I really appreciate you guys coming out, but like, just so you know, like the reason why the COO wasn't there is because the CMO's husband works for him, and he's an underperformer, and he's constantly being reprimanded and on performance review. So they don't like each other. So the CMO who hired us to come out just sort of left out a key player. And like, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. And now we know that, but no one can talk about that.
Right.
So they're going to set a lot of money on fire for us to present findings that specifically will not talk about the problem that they have. And that's kind of the most specific personal example I have of this that is worth sharing in that way from a learning perspective. But there are different sized expressions of that happening all the time. And there are groups specifically shooting themselves in both feet to avoid the brilliance that is and the wisdom that is inside of the system that can't be acknowledged under the guise of it's not there. Meanwhile, everyone knows it's there. It's insane behavior.
Yeah.
It's insane behavior. So I think that like that, it's really specific and random, but that's what came up in my mind. I was like, oh, like group of leaders gathers together to do leadership shit. What are we not saying? You know, what are we not saying here?
Yeah. So in Hold the Standard, methodology, what's your, I guess we'll call it go to, because I know that
Mm,
the real answer is it depends.
mm.
What's your favorite mechanism to put that elephant out there on the table immediately and make that okay?
Oh, I mean, when it comes to elephants in the room, that's I roll that four conversations framework out all the time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I'll give you one more too, but that I think I might have told you already, but the beauty in telling that to a group of people is they
Mm-hmm.
all heard that publicly in the presence of each other, and then they realize, oh shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it sort of neutralizes what's true. Like everybody's like, oh shit, all right, respect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so usually when I come to talk to a team, I don't have the trust or willingness high enough in the system for me to be like, all right, let's talk about all the stuff that you guys can't talk about. Like that's not how that goes. But if you roll out that framework, everybody has to acknowledge that there are four conversations happening. And usually the way that I do it is I say, um, you need to trust me, pull out a piece of paper. No one will see this piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
There's no trickery here. I'm not going to make you write down a thing and then like, come on up, Jeff. Like fuck these people. No, it's like not. It's never going to happen. But if you do the exercise of being like, yeah, in my head, I've been like mfing my direct report, and I've given them zero feedback, and I resent them for something that I've never told them about. All in my head is like, write that down. Like that's like because it's not that the second, third, and fourth conversations are bad or like toxic. It's actually genius insight. It's wisdom. It's like this is actionable stuff that would make this team better. It's the
Mm-hmm.
mechanism that's like we can't address it that is the self-sealing trap or like guaranteeing that we won't get better in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's a helpful one because everybody sort of self-diagnoses. And then anytime you offer a framework, one of the benefits offering a framework to a group is everyone has language for that now.
Mm-hmm.
One of my other favorites, I share this a lot, so forgive me if you've heard it or people are listening and heard it. You know, I am allegedly a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner, right? I took a course. Yeah,
Ooh.
there's some fancy thing. I forgot half the stuff, but my teacher in Amsterdam of this course told me a story one time at lunch about a CEO that she coached, and she said it was fascinating talking to this CEO for hire. You know, he goes into these sort of large companies that are in distress and tries to turn them around. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
going into a company with 10,000 or more employees, turning them around usually looks like layoffs. You know, like you got to
Yep.
fire 6,000 people to like cut costs. You know, it's like the
Mm-hmm.
first step. And she's like, how do you do that in a company that you just met? You know, and he's like, I
Mm-hmm.
use a basic framework that's like oversimplified, and I think it's a really helpful lens. And he goes, I believe, and I've been told that there are three types of people on any team. The first type is the player. The players are the people who don't need hand holding. One of them is worth like five other people. They're MVPs. You all know these types of people. That's type number one. Type two person is the passenger. These are people who like don't get in trouble. They basically do their job. They're just kind of around, trying to not ruffle feathers. Third type is a prisoner. This is someone who has experienced some sort of injustice or has sort of like devolved into like a toxic place where they're victimized by their role and they're just upset. And she's like, okay, well, what do you do with the three people? She's like, well, obviously the players you keep, we've got those like companies built on those people. Passengers, fire them immediately. There's no space for that. It's just like we can't waste space and resources with people who are just here, right? And he goes, the third one, the prisoner is actually pretty controversial. He's like, because I believe that there are prisoners who used to be players. So people who are high performance contributors who have experienced some sort of injustice. Those people can be salvaged typically by moving them laterally or changing their role. Prisoners who used to be passengers, fire them all, right?
Mm,
And what's interesting about that framework is I've shared that with a lot of companies and a lot of group leaders. And the most powerful thing, I've never used it or offered for anyone to use it in a way to fire people,
mm-hmm,
but I have encouraged people to share that publicly, just like I talked about the 4 conversations. If you walk into a team of 10 people or 30 people and tell the story that I just told, there's a
mm-hmm,
natural thing that happens, which is everybody has to self-diagnose who's who.
mm-hmm.
Oh shit, I've been a whining little bitch over here about X, Y, and Z. Like I've totally become that resentful, downward spiral person.
Yep.
Oh, I'm just chilling. Like I've been here 7 years and I don't try hard at all. Right.
Mm-hmm,
And then there is a natural desire to like typecast other people, you know?
mm-hmm,
And I don't say do something about those typecasts. I do say that this is an inflection point for
mm-hmm,
you to understand where you are, and you've got a certain amount of time to get to the type of person that we're going to keep around here, right? And it's
mm-hmm.
a self-reflective thing,
Right.
you know. And I think that does a lot of addressing elephants in the room, because groups of people don't just sit around and be like, well, I don't know much, but Michael's cruising over here, right? He's mailing it in. Like that doesn't comes up in a meeting with you present publicly,
Mm-hmm.
but we might all be thinking it, you know?
Right.
So stuff like that, where you can self-diagnose and reflect
Mm-hmm.
internally, acknowledges and shines light on what is going unspoken in the room really well.
Mm. This really gets to the heart. I was having a conversation with uh, a MARSOC Marine who's now in wealth management. And that fucking elephant, dude, where there's this disconnect in communication that I think a lot of us, at least in that 4th conversation for sure, from the veteran community, I'll speak for, definitely have. And I'm more than positive coming out of athletics, it's present as well. When you're used to the stakes being high, and if I don't say the thing, we lose or somebody dies,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? That dynamic doesn't necessarily exist anywhere else
Mm-hmm.
other than those 2 cultures.
Yeah.
And what I pick up from you and what I've seen you teach is that if you can get there, where everybody understands the mission, the vision, the values, all the buzzwords, and culturally we can adopt this behavior of, if I don't say the thing, maybe we don't have to raise the stakes to life and death, but we sure as shit ain't winning.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in my experience of Logan, that's where you're masterful, because you make that shift okay.
Yeah. I mean, that is the goal, which is to create the container. That's the language I would use. I think that
Mm-hmm.
leaders and founders and people who are building companies and organizations, the primary goal is to build and maintain a container of high levels of trust and willingness. We've talked about that back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's still true so far to me right now.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right. Like I even talk about in the summit, I'm like, my background is in baseball, which is a made up game for kids that we've somehow co-opted into like attributing a lot of value to.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are mean making creatures. So in the United States of America, boys want to grow up, lots of them, millions of them, to play Major League Baseball. And there's a lot of meaning assigned with that. Now, no one's dying if you lose, but it's very close to like the highest level meaning
Mm-hmm.
for people in that world.
Right.
Now, so high level athletics, great environment to learn principled truths of group dynamics and performance. You acknowledge the sort of obvious, which is that in your former line of work, mistakes and complacency has high consequences, like the cost of someone's life, the ultimate sacrifice. So
Mm-hmm.
the feedback loop is really rigorous. The million or billion or trillion dollar question is like, how do you create that level of rigor in an environment where no one's dying? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're moving like fake numbers around and calling it finance or whatever, right? So the container building doesn't really care how you get to trust and willingness, but that is the priority. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the hard thing is that it's never going to be life and death. And how do you get people in a restaurant to act like Marines? I don't necessarily know. That seems pretty tough. But here's the human thing that I
Mm-hmm.
think is the good news. The human thing is that we want to live and work in environments that allow us to be our whole self,
Mm-hmm.
to grow and find our edges. You know, this is the problem of classic corporate America. It's why people leave, is you can't unknow that you're not growing and developing and progressing, right? You're like exchanging time for money in a soulless type of way sometimes. So like the human need for, oh, I want to come to work and say the truth and hear the truth
Mm-hmm.
is like, that's an interesting human thing. We need that. I want to come to work and be better, more capable, more fulfilled than I was yesterday. That's a real human desire that can be anchors to make mundane work like finance or insurance or accounting meaningful. Like
Mm-hmm.
it, where it's worth it to say the hard thing, right? Where there's enough trust and willingness in the system to say, hey, Michael, like the way that you turned in that report last week just doesn't work for these 5 reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Most workplace environments, it doesn't feel worth it to give that feedback, right? So it just doesn't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
now you and I work in an environment where you know I'm not telling you the truth. And I know I'm not telling you the truth. And that hurts us in a unspoken type of way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's not easy by any means, but it is. I find that groups appreciate the permission to
Yep.
live in that way. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how I think you can create a container that doesn't turn it into life and death like we're fighting war, war fighters or something. But the mechanics are closer to that level of rigor
Right.
because the mission is that important to us and
Mm-hmm.
our way of being together is that important to us.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude, you're the fucking man.
you're the man. Yeah.
Where can everybody find what you're working on, man?
I got a bunch of stuff on holdthestandard.com. You can find all like the leadership laboratory stuff there, which is a small cohort of leaders from around the world where we talk about leadership concepts to grow capacity and build better groups. There's a podcast, Hold the Standard podcast, that's on that website as well. DeuceGym.com has all the gym stuff, and then yeah, I'm at Functional Coach on all the socials. So
That boy.
yeah, man.
Awesome, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you, dog.
I got to come see you. I'm supposed to come talk to the Cleveland Guardians out there this spring training, so I might be in the neighborhood.
Come on,
So
man.
and my parents live out there, so I
I
gotta
know.
come see them. So I'll hit you up.
I don't have a gym no more, but we could definitely kick it.
Dude, I'm not trying to work out. I'm trying to work out.
Dude,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Awesome,
Cool.
man.
Thank
For
you.
everybody out there listening, if you're on a mission to be the fittest leader possible, remember it comes down to integrity, courage, and ownership. And at the base, it's built on the foundation of alignment first. We'll see you next time.
Cool.